Welcome back to Vitals, the Georgia Life Sciences podcast brought to you in partnership with Cloudcast Media. I'm Maria Thacker, and I'm really excited for today's conversation. Granted, I'm always really excited for these conversations because they're so interesting, and we've had a great lineup this season. Today, we're joined by Mike Walker, Vice President of Health and Life Sciences Supply Chain at Microsoft. Mike, can you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and your time spent at Gartner and your background?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. So a little bit about me. My roles in the past have been largely in the corporate strategy, innovation management types of areas. And that spanned across different industries. And so that has lended very well for the life sciences industry, especially given that when we look at life sciences companies in the supply chain manufacturing area, they tend to be behind a bit compared to a peer in another adjacent industry like semiconductors or retail and consumer goods, as an example. So I'm able to bring a lot of those insights back. But also when I was at Gartner, so I was the VP of Technology Innovation and CTO Strategy. So I had the opportunity to talk to quite a bit of customers around the globe and really understand their supply chain issues down to the core. And so marrying that with emerging technology, which most struggle to figure out how do I bring this in? How do I get people to adopt these technologies? And ultimately, how do I get business benefit? So having that analyst background and really doing a lot of that research with small businesses, VC, PE, academia, and then the large
A lot of personalities.
A lot of interesting personalities, yes. Really helped me kind of get a better 360 view on how to provide advice in my role at Microsoft, which, it's really three key components. I'm a strategic advisor, so I'm like a free McKinsey consultant for our customers, and they love to hear that because they're not spending $800 an hour. And so this is everything from working with their top business executives to really help them formulate what is a digital first strategy? How do I embrace? My board is telling me I need to use AI. Well, how do I do that in my business and make it a reality? But second, I'm also a bridge between Microsoft and our partners. So Microsoft is a platform company. It's a partner-driven company. And with that, it's about orchestrating the right capabilities to come with a fully rounded solution with Microsoft as kind of the core. And so working with our engineering team to augment capabilities, et cetera. Then lastly, as you can see, I like to flap my gums and blow hot air. I do things like this. I speak
you
at
have the
events
background to do that.
and write books and things along those lines.
That's exciting. And we'll be sure to link in the podcast notes. I did find your personal website with all that information, so that's great. But we really appreciate you coming down to Atlanta and participating in our annual conference and bringing some of that education around supply chain to our community. We are not a big biotech hub, we know that, but we are an emerging one, and we have amazing universities, a lot of great talent coming together to build our ecosystem. But we also do have a very strong manufacturing capacity growing in the life sciences with obviously Takeda, but also Boehringer Ingelheim Animal Health facility is growing quite significantly here in Georgia. And so is J&J and others. So, and of course, with all these announcements of recent reshoring, I'm quite sure the state is actively pursuing those too. So it's an important piece of the puzzle, but as these companies are looking at building these types of facilities, AI is a piece of it. If we're not even at the earliest stages of a development of a new product, or even at the most basic level of a company, if you're not including technology as a piece of it, you're already behind the times, right? But getting to that ecosystem conversation, we'll dive into that a little bit later after we kind of set the stage a bit on really your role and what you do and the advisement that Microsoft, the expertise you bring from Microsoft's perspective. We see three places AI is helping our industry today: in pharma and biotech, whether that's planning, quality control, maintenance, and one place it shouldn't run yet. Can you give us a few ideas of what those places should be and should not be?
So I typically advise clients to go after the non-sexy use cases. And what that means is more the operational types of aspects where we have data already. So a great example of this is SOPs. We've already have a regulated set of documents that have to be accurate. So we don't have to worry about what I refer to as data trustworthiness, right? That the quality is there, the right context is in place. If you don't have the right context, you're going to lead to hallucinations and things along those lines. So starting there is really important, and really mastering that. And, most importantly, your talent within your organization, because your talent is also trying to upskill, and giving kind of where we're at with this kind of generational divide.
Yeah.
That can be somewhat challenging. So how do we bring them along on the journey? Things like also document generation for regulatory submissions, lots of really great use cases that are also kind of low effort, but extremely high value when it comes to productivity. And so we can talk about more of those later as well. The areas that you shouldn't go into, or maybe let me rephrase it. If you're not a leading innovator in AI, I would not recommend starting with
Don't prioritize these, in other words.
Right, more of the advanced autonomous agents.
Okay.
Because, well, for GMP or GXP processes, again, master the areas where you can get the successes and wins. Focus on blockbuster drugs, because that's what your organization is going to care about. But also thinking about creative ways of optimizing your operations and your business from a process perspective. So we often don't think about, hey, we've got these decision forums, these steering committees, et cetera. Putting automation there is really, really helpful. If I'm the president of supply chain and I say, my site in North Carolina, why did we make this decision on this particular technology or process to optimize yield? You could ask an agent that question and have it mine what's already in your Microsoft 365 graph, the emails, the SharePoint documents, because a lot of these decisions are an email, I agree.
Wow. And just for clarification, because you mentioned the generational divide, when you say ask your agent, you're not talking about a person, you're talking about the actual tool that you have in place.
I am not talking about an insurance agent that wears red that has lots of commercials.
I just want to make sure it's clear. So you're talking about the tool, this AI piece that's been trained for the needs of your company, right?
And I know, so, coming from Microsoft, there is technologies that are kind of out of the box, right? So everyone's probably heard of Copilot as an example. That's something that's built into every single productivity suite tool as an example. And you can leverage that. It's not the only. So, I don't want to be over-indexing on the Microsoft tech, because there are many other complementary technologies that will supplement that strategy.
Interesting. It's funny. They had there's a TikTok that's gone semi-viral. This woman suddenly moved from a smaller company to a company that's fully integrated and accepted Microsoft 365. And she had no idea there were all these tools and how AI integrated with it. And she's like, why do companies spend, and I'm not trying to plug Microsoft, even though it sounds like we are, there are all these separate you pay month to month for, and it can be integrated. But I think that goes back to teaching AI what you need to know, and it learns your company and your processes, which creates more efficiencies that thereby obviously hopefully saves money too. And that is applicable in our industry too. Yeah.
And that's really the value prop when we think about this architecturally. Whether it's Microsoft or anybody else, it's when you create a platform of intelligence within the organization, where you've got a platform where your data sits, where it's curated and it's GXP compliant, et cetera. Now, once you start to layer capabilities on top of it, it inherits all that AI. And so cleverly, Microsoft, what we've done is we've said, look, we're a platform as a service company. And so now, if you're using Teams, you should be able to have access to all that AI goodness. Someone built a independent WYSIWYG editor agent, as an example. Why can't the rest of the organization use that as if it were an app store for AI within your company?
Wow. I mean, so let's step back a bit, because I think you and I both get into our areas and we can dive in and nerd out on our specialties and our passions. But if I am a life sciences company, biotech, medical device, whichever, pharma, why do I care about AI, especially in this moment in time? Especially, and I would say in this industry, as in a regulated space that we're in. It's one thing if I am manufacturing pens. It is a different thing if I'm manufacturing drugs. So why do I care about AI?
So why do you care? So when we say AI, let's start there. We're talking about a family of different capabilities, right? Ranging from RPA to machine learning to vision technology to the latest and greatest, most hyped technology, generative AI and agentic AI. So if we focus on that for a moment and just recognizing that there's others that complement that, why you should care is it is a amplification of your own workforce. So how I tend to think about this and explain it to...
It's a tool. Yeah.
It's a tool, but also think about it as an intern just out of college.
Okay.
And they're really smart and they're really capable and they know the basics of your business, but you got to slowly train it to get up to speed. And so maybe that takes 6 months, maybe that takes a year, whatever that number is. But now imagine you times that by 5, you times that by 10 across your organization. Now, when we talk about scaling your business, right? Now, what does it look like? Well, we're getting huge productivity increases, 1. 2, what we're able to do is things like with training of your actual workforce.
Yep.
Having an agent, an AI agent, that is able to provide just-in-time training. Like the average pharmaceutical company, they spend, their frontline workers spend around 5 to 15% of their time just on training.
Yeah. Wow. And for months. Yeah.
Recertification. So,
well, that's really important. And I digress a little bit, but reskilling workforce to meet the needs of the growing manufacturing needs we have simply in our industry is a huge deal. And in a state like Georgia, where we have a lot of manufacturing, whether it's for cars or batteries, whatever you want to, any of those spaces, there's a lot of transferable skills, but they need to also be reskilled. And then you layer in the generational differences from how people follow SOPs, et cetera. It creates another thing, but AI is a tool that you're training that can help enable them to also learn more effectively and efficiently, right?
So as an example, what I'm working with clients on are some very straightforward but really high value use cases for the talent that you're mentioning. And really what we are looking for is not only the talent retention, but also the talent acquisition as well. So we have to create a framework that supports both our existing workforce, at whatever generational aspect that they are, but also this emergent group as well that has very, very different expectations on what they want from the workplace. And so a simple example of this is saying, okay, we've got SOPs. They read like stereo instructions. Yeah. Right?
I've seen some of the packets.
Or, like in Beetlejuice, the recently deceased manual, right?
Yes, yes.
So what we're able to do just with that text is we're able to say, hey, let's put that into Sora, which is from OpenAI. That is a text to video engine.
Oh, okay.
So let's create videos of our SOPs because maybe people learn better that way. We can pump them through, the Microsoft OpenAI pieces to do things like create a podcast type of format.
Just about to say that, yeah.
Yeah,
I have to keep up on a lot of policy stuff. I take it in better via podcast audio,
And then you can keep the text stuff.
Sure.
But also the last bit is augmented reality.
Oh, okay.
And so that's kind of a very kind of a cutting edge, emergent area where you're in the environment.
Are we talking VR glasses situations?
Yeah.
Okay.
So AR, so augmented reality glasses.
Okay.
So you can see the physical environment.
Oh, okay.
And so maybe I'm looking in this SOP and I've got maybe the text here in my virtual display, but also as it's going through, it's highlighting the equipment.
Yeah.
And it's asking you, open up that door, and then I'm going to show you X, Y, and Z. But lastly, another cool aspect is remote assist. So you could have, let's say, that workforce that has retired, but they've got an enormous amount of institutional knowledge that we don't want to lose. I've seen organizations say, look, we'll put you on a contractor, 1099 type of person that you're kind of escalated support.
Okay.
And so they can get on a video conference through Teams and be able to help them in real time. So they see what you see. Wow. And you can say, Jim, you need to connect here, there, etc. So it really provides a much more intuitive way of interacting with SOPs.
Yeah, and more intuitive even than virtual reality, frankly, because you're in that space. And I realize in other spaces, VR is necessary, surgery, that type of things. You can't practice in the same way. But in our world, it's really critical. And this growing workforce need in our industry, I think it's going to push us to have to do more and more of this, but not only at the big pharmas and biotechs, even the smaller ones that might be just beginning their manufacturing process at an early stage. Yes. So I think it's all important. So Mike, where does this apply, really, AI, and why should we continue to care?
So that's a great question. And the interesting part of all this is that there are so many forces at play that are really accelerating the adoption. And so we've got very real, number one, external regulatory forces. The landscape keeps changing and adjusting, whether it be the FDA, and we've got things like ELSA to approve drugs, and all the trials and tribulations there. But also you've got on the other side, pharma's got to know what it's going to look for and have complementary AI on their side as well. So that's one piece, is the regulatory landscape with the EU AI Act and all the other bits coming along down the path. Geopolitical aspects. So with all the tariffs happening, really being able to take your supply chain network and understanding where can I insert optionality in that supply chain. Do complicated what if scenario analysis, because we don't know when the U.S. government may impose a steeper tariff or remove it, etc. And then lastly, with high-risk jurisdictions, what we have is forces that are completely out of our control, where you've got nations that are taking a very strong position in particular areas like China with the IP laws. It makes it very restrictive and high risk for pharmaceutical companies to invest in manufacturing there. So how do we use AI to say, hey, what if we just have a sales office there and do manufacturing in other places? What are the impacts? Or if we do have manufacturing there, how can we minimize the footprint so our IP isn't viewed? But also we can control the blast radius as far as fraud is concerned, because there's lots of fraudulent activity that happens in these high-risk jurisdictions as well. So we want to be able to look at that. So that's one big force that's driving this. But also we mentioned a aging population that's hitting that retirement age. We can now use AI to supplement some of those efforts, but also create an environment where talent can immediately embrace AI for real-time training, to complement their jobs, so you don't need as many frontline workers, as an example, because you're using maybe vision technology for worker safety or cold chain. There's lots of different aspects there. So lastly, and this might be one of the bigger reasons why we want to really leverage AI, and what I hear from customers is things along the lines of, we're hitting a patent cliff. What do we do? Most pharmaceutical companies are challenged by NPI, or new product introduction. And with that, I could discover all the molecules or buy all the molecules I want. But if I can't tech transfer that into a CMO or one of my facilities, I could have all of the molecules in the world and I can't do anything with it, right? And so the challenge is, and this is really what I pose to executives, is really, you're not really in the drug business. You're in the patent management business. So when we think about it that way.
For the benefit of patients.
For the benefit of the health of the world.
For public health,
So with that patent, now we care about the patent life cycle and how to maximize that patent. And if I can only onboard 2 or 3 drugs a year, which is the case for some, and it takes me up to 18 to 30 months to get them fully operationalized, how much of that blockbuster drug of that revenue is not being realized? A lot. Right? So it hits the bottom line. So addressing things like new product introduction and tech transfer are great use cases for AI, because what are some of the slowdowns? It's the documentation, it's the process, it's creating repeatability, all those aspects that we can have AI help us and complement us and make that process go faster.
That's outstanding. Learning so much during this conversation. I mean, the practical use, the workforce training, regulatory aspects, and everything else you talked about, the patent cliff, didn't even think about that aspect of it. That's really, really important. And I would imagine that's also important for small companies as well. So, I know you work primarily with, top 20 global biopharma companies. if I'm a small startup or an emerging company, maybe I'm getting to the point where I'm considering starting to do some small scale manufacturing or maybe mid-size.
Yep.
Why do I care for the same reasons or most of the same reasons?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to. That's kind of the cost of doing business at that point. Now, your global network may not be global. It may be very local. However, you're going to have similar concerns. But also, you as a small business have an opportunity to outpace the big boys and girls, the big pharmas, because you are much more agile and nimble. So you've got an advantage because you don't have all the legacy baggage.
Okay.
You don't have to worry about adoption because you're straight in hiring kind of that digitally native crew to come in and work at those sites and operate the business.
Yeah.
So you're actually at a significant advantage and can run circles potentially around some of the big pharma.
So I hope we have a company here called Vero Bio who's building manufacturing as well or scaling, I should say, their manufacturing. I mean, those are the types of companies that really need to be integrating this now before they get even larger and training their workforce and getting that skill set. So that's amazing. I think it's helpful. So let's just talk for a minute on the credibility of AI as it relates to our industry. And I know there's a political aspect to this that, a lot of, changes from a regulatory standpoint, but how many guardrails and fallback should an AI system have, in your opinion? Yeah.
So in my opinion, there are proactive guardrails that we have to put in place. And so first and foremost, it's the data. Making sure that we have trustworthy data. And when I say trustworthy, I don't just mean the quality of that data. I mean, okay, is it connected to other data sources that give it the proper context and how that particular data set should be used when we layer intelligence on top of it? It's about, can I use things like machine learning to curate my existing data set so it makes my LLM or ChatGPT or Copilot
LM, learning model, right? Is that what LM?
Large,
okay, make sure I get the acronyms right here.
Large language
large
model.
language model. Sorry. Yeah.
And so preparing that data for you to be successful, so you would prevent having a particular guardrail in production, is super important. And so going with that is the governance around that data. It's the protection. So making sure you have a zero trust type of architecture, which essentially means we assume we don't trust anybody, to keep it very, very simple.
Yep.
And then lastly, it's I have an ability to make this evergreen. And with that evergreen process, I can make sure that I can, in an agile way, comply to new regulatory requirements that may be imposed on me. Because that's, from the question that you asked, there's a lot of, has to do with this from a regulatory perspective. So, and you can, if Germany says the data can't leave the country, we can support that.
Yeah.
And it's having that common digital backbone that's supporting those efforts that's going to allow you to do that.
And I assume we're also going to need the SOPs in place to track all of that so you can account for how you collected it all. But I imagine the AI can track all that for you.
It can, but remember with...
I'm keeping we're very regulated. We have to have that full chain of evidence if I'm taking a criminology term. So, yeah.
No, that's absolutely right.
Yeah.
And so and that's why having that digital backbone is important, is we can protect our systems of record and make sure that from an audit perspective, that we can say these decisions were based on
this and this.
These systems of record, and we've protected them this way. This is how the algorithm is using that data, et cetera. Because the challenge is generative AI, which we've been talking a lot about, is just that. It's generative. It means it's creating net new data that has never existed before. So it's not like a search engine where it pulls exact things from places. This is generating net new interpreted content. So we have to make sure that that base foundational layer is solid if you want to protect yourself from any sort of regulatory scrutiny or trust challenges with AI.
Interesting. And I just a couple more questions. I'm going to ask a practical one that didn't bring up in our pre-recording conversation. Do companies need to think about hiring someone for a role like this, getting a consultant? hiring interns? Like, I mean, the practical, if I'm thinking I'm a small company, I can't afford this, I have a lean team, are there ways to approach it? And it's not an obvious plug for me to say hire Microsoft to do this, because there's lots of tools out there.
Yeah.
But I'm just realistically, we know if we're not thinking about this now, you're going to be left behind, sometimes even if you have great science. So how does a company realistically start to integrate this?
Yeah.
In early stage.
So in my mind, it's a multifaceted challenge. And, one, there's the actual people there today, and the adoption and the education, kind of the upskilling piece. And so you can use AI to help you do that.
Okay.
What I found even more successful is when you bring in a AI digital native and you put them in a role where people shadow them.
Okay.
And they say, oh, I'm going through the process and here's what I would do as an AI native. Here's the type of prompt I would use. Here's where I would create an agent for me to monitor my inbox. So if this particular issue comes across my inbox, that agent's going to take that and then do the appropriate thing, create a draft email for me to review. And then all I got is, okay, this is about 90% right. Change this, change that. But all the core data is coming from your systems. Send. Now you see the immediate benefit. And sometimes, you need to see that benefit before you really believe that it's worth your time, because
start small, pick that one problem and build your own trust with the system you're integrating. So, but we have to do it. It's here. AI is not going anywhere as far as we know, right?
Yeah.
And the big companies are looking for it. So
one last thing though.
And when you say hire a native, you mean a human being? I'm
Yes,
sorry.
yes.
I feel like this is the part where being born in 1980, I feel leaning towards the older generation side of me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not cool. Oh no, that. So anyway, we'll just do the last two questions in a second. I know you want to get that last prompt in. I feel like the timer's getting shorter and shorter. Okay.
I feel like that too.
No, it's fine. It's fine. So one more thing you said?
Yes.
Okay.
So
I asked about hiring a human. Is it an actual human? I feel dumb. Yes.
So it's an actual human
Yes.
That is highly versed and skilled with AI, more kind of entrepreneurial-ish, right? But I do want to say that I would not do what you just asked.
Okay.
I would not just say, let's outsource it to AI to begin with. You want to invest in your talent pool.
Yep.
You want to either acquire that talent or rotate the talent in if you got talent going out, but also upskill your employee base. And the reason why is they've got all the institutional knowledge. And that's the piece that's the most valuable out of this equation. It's the data that AI is going to use.
Yeah.
So if I just brought someone in to, even with that native, AI digital native, he or she still doesn't really understand the context and all the 30 years of history on why we do it the way we do it to create the optimal solution built in AI.
Yeah. So you think this is a role that's going to start to be integrated into companies on a regular basis? And
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And I think, it's interesting as someone that's operational in my core nature when it comes to running an organization. I always feel an operations person really knows at a broad level everything that's going on. So it'll be interesting to see an AI native hire kind of have that same perspective, but also a certain level of depth that you don't necessarily get in other roles. So,
but it also requires, and I do want to make sure that I point this out as well, it doesn't mean that there's only certain people that are the AI experts. We want to democratize AI across the company as a first-class citizen. So the expectation is that this person is there to help bring the skill level up and kind of bring that innovation. But you need to have a culture of innovation, a culture of AI, or you're going to just constantly be on the back foot.
Yeah. All right. So future, call to action, looking forward. What's realistic in 12 months? AI moves so fast versus what's transformational in 5 years?
So that's
For our industry, I should clarify.
So that's a great question. And the reason why I say that is truth is in the eye of the beholder, as they say. So what is transformational for one company may not be transformational for another. So I tend to pivot less on the actual technology solution, but more on what are the board objectives over the next 3 to 5 years. let's focus there. So what are the business capabilities that must be true for us to knock the ball out of the park when it comes to our business performance? And so I run workshops all the time for clients where we work with their senior most business leaders and technology leaders to really ideate around that future state.
Yeah.
And typically what we do is we say, when we go into these things, is let's create a POC for this. Let's create a POC for that. The problem you run into is it's a land of irrelevance. It's just proven out of technology, but I don't know how to use it. So you get into this POC purgatory mode, right? Where you're doing AI stuff, but it's like you're running in, the mud. You just can't get the
POC
traction.
stands for
Proof of concept.
proof of concept, making sure it's not point of care. We have healthcare listeners
that's
too.
true.
Just want to make sure.
Thank you.
So yeah.
And so you don't want to be stuck there. So coming out of these workshops, we go all the way from the first question you asked me about why we should care. So we go through a disruptions framework that says, here's what I don't know, and I don't know how to implement this. 2, their known strategy. Let's bring those things together, because oftentimes they're not. And let's focus on that 3 to 5 year view. From that, now we have the technology that can enable us. We've got what's important. So what's most strategically relevant and what has the highest value potential.
Okay.
If we go high, we're top right-hand corner.
Yep.
Most relevant, most value, and we're going for small bubbles because that means level of effort. Okay. So now I've got an easy framework that everyone in the organization, all of the decision makers can get their heads wrapped around, right? Because you don't want to be in the bottom left-hand corner, which is the quick hits POC purgatory, which is low relevance, low value. So we focus on any implementation that I work with customers on. It's on a blockbuster drug site.
Sure.
Right? Because it's going to add immediate value. And
help build trust and credibility with the system you're building throughout the culture of the company. Yes. Yep.
Absolutely.
Going back to your list earlier. Yeah.
Yeah. So by doing that, now everyone's on board. You don't have to pull them anymore.
Yeah.
They're coming to you.
And you could do the same process even as a smaller company, right? Oh, definitely.
100%. And it's even easier for you in theory.
So then thinking really long term, and as it maybe even relates to patients, what's going to look completely different in your opinion 5-10 years now from industry for patients is yours? And I realize it's a moving target with how fast innovation is happening, AI is moving, but what do you think, your personal opinion?
My personal opinion, I think biohacking hasn't had its breakout moment yet.
Oh my, okay.
And so I wrote about this in 2018, I think, and in some of the research that I was doing at Gartner. And there was still a lot of activity happening then. It slowly is evolving, but it hasn't hit that key mark where we get that kind of explosion effect, like an Apple Watch effect type of example. We get more quantified self, which means I can put numbers around what my body's doing. Yeah. But it's not really doing much.
Well, I just got one of the rings. I already have a watch. I have no idea what to do with the data except make sure I meet my step goal.
Right. So now, when we talk about human augmentation, now I can have things that are acting on my behalf. I can put meaning behind the data, which is important because now I've got all this data, but if I don't know how to use it, how helpful is it?
Is it really? Yeah.
So you got that aspect. Quantum computing has always been at that stage of, it's just another few years out. I personally think, 2032 to 2035, we're going to get there. The world's going to look very different when that happens because all the security algorithms that we have today are easily crackable.
Yeah.
So we got to get into that post-quantum world, both from a protection strategy, but also from a how do we harness this great power as well. And not to plug Microsoft, but just as a practical example.
Sure.
So we launched a product called Microsoft Discovery. And this is a product that gives you AI algorithms. We partnered with NVIDIA as well to provide kind of their BioNemo platform and all that. And it's really there to help the scientists use AI in a much more intuitive way. Before you'd have to be a coder and you have to learn the language and all that. Now I can ask a co-pilot and it can build the code for me.
Okay.
And what's great about this is not only the productivity of the scientists, but also it's a bridge to quantum. So everything built into that material sciences type of platform is directly convertible. It's actually written in Q#.
Okay, so we're back rolling now. You may want to give us like a wrap up for that last section that we're talking about.
I'll clear it up. So quantum computing, I guess I'm going to have to learn these acronyms and understand that a bit more outside of just a movie I hear about it in.
Yep.
So pulling it back into more directly into life sciences, though I hear that particular tool, I don't know what to call it, within Microsoft you mentioned.
Discovery, yep.
Microsoft Discovery, it sounds like it's very practical for our scientists. And again, there's going to need to be a adoption and that culture of building AI into your company or your academic institution, whatever, so they embrace these types of systems.
And GSK was a launch partner.
Oh, okay, great. Yes.
So it's very applicable.
Yes, very applicable. Yeah, that's great. As one other practical thing, I think if we're looking ahead and what's transformational, it's even going to be transformational for these large greenfield sites and brownfield sites as companies are considering building manufacturing. I mean, there's all these RFPs that have gone out to reshore, and these efforts to reshore manufacturing. A lot of states have existing greenfield sites, but if you're a state like, say, Georgia, that doesn't necessarily have a ready-to-go shovel-ready site for this industry, but we're working towards that. What does that mean? How can we approach that differently than we've traditionally done it?
Yeah, and so some of this is on the pharma companies to define what is good for them, because they're the one that's going to be purchasing and using those facilities. And so when I work with customers, it's coming up with what is that blueprint that we want to build for that factory of the future, right? What should it embody? What should I be able to do? What are the capabilities it should deliver? Ranging from all the AI stuff we've talked about, from digital twin technology and digital thread, which is probably even more important than digital twin, and just everything in between. So coming up with that point of view, POV. See, I'm getting better with my acronyms.
That's all right, that's right.
You can proactively, as an entity, come to the table and say, hey, here's a picture. Here's what we think that it should look like and embody, if you're not getting that from them, right? And that's going to make you more attractive as well, because they're going to go, hey, these guys know what they're talking about, right? So coming with that type of blueprint, so now you can say, well, you don't need all of that. Well, this is kind of like an a la carte menu as well. So if this is just a small molecule site, as an example, well, I don't need everything that a large molecule site needs. So let's remove these components, et cetera. But it gives you the ability to industrialize that factory of the future through that blueprint, where it's, when we talked about data. Yeah. Well, how do we infuse data in everything? All the equipment already has sensors on it. The facilities has sensors on it.
I love the factory of the future term, and it probably used a lot in other audiences, but I don't hear it often. So I'd love that term. So especially in this day and age, and in a growing ecosystem like ours, I think that's really important, because we have so much opportunity, because we're not North Carolina and all that has all this infrastructure ready to go already. So we can kind of be ahead of the game at this particular inflection point for the industry.
But even with those states, Philly, Philadelphia, some
Jersey,
Raleigh,
RTP,
and all that, the pharma companies still have to go in and define and spec out these sites. It's not ready made for them. So in a way, while they've got essentially the IP, the intellectual property of people there that know this space really well, you're almost on semi-even playing field, in my opinion, because they're still building sites and they're still redrawing and reconfiguring and all that. But if you take a fundamentally different approach that is more proactive in nature and say, hey, I understand your needs, and so you don't have to spend months and months and months to go back and forth. That can put you ahead.
Interesting. All right. Before we close, do my final question around Rewire, I want to ask you, is there one last message you would give to a growing ecosystem that's more densely in the, I'd say, small to mid-size biotech and medical device space? We have a lot of medical device down here. So just one last food for thought.
Okay. Food for thought. Be very deliberate in the way that you're innovating. Remember, a fool with a tool is still a fool. Okay. So making sure that we are harnessing AI in the right ways, smart ways, you can still do it wrong. And the numbers are kind of crazy when we talk about there's 86% of life sciences organizations are actively building AI.
Okay.
70% of those have yet to find
I was
value.
going to say that feels really high for them to be doing it effectively, but I'm just guessing at that. Okay.
So we're still struggling with figuring out how do we get the output. And a lot of it we've talked about building up to this point, from the talent to the data, to make it useful and trustworthy, et cetera. So you really, really need to be deliberate, take a step back, look at it from a business perspective, look at your shareholders or investors and say, hey, what are their KPIs and how can we make sure that we've got our eye on that prize when we're leveraging AI as a fundamental tool in our toolbox.
And hopefully government or regulatory can keep up with the pace of how this is moving too. Right. But in the end, this means therapies and drugs to market faster.
Yes.
For patients, and hopefully more innovations getting approved more quickly too, especially as we hope the FDA moves towards modernizing itself. So that's all important. So to close things out, I typically ask a fun fact, but I already know your fun fact. You also, you love having conversations like this, but you've also written a book called Rewire. So could you tell me a little bit more about Rewire and just, your inspiration and what drives you in general with that? So
so some of what we've talked about is actually in the book. So it's really centered around the notion of a digital ecosystem. And what I found with supply chains, and I wrote this book right at the beginning of COVID.
Okay.
So all the information is really leading up to that point, and then kind of saying, okay.
So you're going to have to do Rewire 2.0, is that right?
Yeah, post-COVID, what does it all mean? Was I right or wrong, right? So really, the model is fundamentally broken in supply chains. It's linear, it's fragile, as we know. We've got critical dependencies like, India, the majority of the API coming from India, active primary ingredients.
Thank you.
Never
would have guessed that one, by the way.
Right. Yeah. And that API is coming from, 70% of that is coming from just two companies. So not only do you have a country dependency and the laws governing that and whatever
this gets into tariffs and all that other stuff. We can build all the buildings we want here, but if everything's coming from those two companies, we still have a problem with that. Yeah.
Right. And so then you have the company level, which is, you got your own challenges. So knowing that and knowing the challenges of data's in silos, we can't make informed decisions because we don't have access to it. It's either through our CMOs or it's through our partners' ecosystem, et cetera. How do we reinvent that model? And so blockchain was one of the inspirations, but blockchain had turned out to be really not all that successful because the barrier to entry for organizations was way too high that could be agreed upon by everyone in the ecosystem. So taking those types of concepts and saying, hey, we're not going to create this linear system. We're going to create a hub that's able to orchestrate my ecosystem. So it's a fundamental difference of the telephone game to now it's I've got a coordinator that's saying, okay, in this circumstance, I want this partner or this partner. I want this technology, I want that technology. So now we can bring all that data together in a meaningful way. So when we talk about where I can use AI to prevent challenges and create optionality in my supply chain, now I can do that where I couldn't before. So the book is really a quick guide. So I wrote it so that any CXO could pick it up, read it over the weekend.
Okay.
It's very dense and models from not technical models, mind you. It's the business model that you need to put in place. What type of operating agreements, what sort of legal structures do I need to put in place, et cetera. So it gets into very real practicalities of how do I do this. And so it was a great exercise. In the book, I start every chapter with a customer that I worked with.
Okay.
That they're talking about, hey, here's how it's helped me, ranging from folks like GE Aviation to where, we wanted to be able to track airline parts from the ore in the ground.
Oh, wow.
All the way to a plane's been in market for 30 years. It's changed hands 15 times. And we can still track the lineage or the back to birth record for that particular.
You should do a mini version of it just on the pharma bio side of things, medical device. I think there'd be just because the regulatory piece of it creates a little bit of different dynamics, would be great. But this has been an awesome conversation, really eye-opening for me, and I think it'll be educational for our community. Georgia, as you likely know, we are a big supply chain hub, and continuing to grow that with our ports getting bigger in Savannah, of course, our airport as well, and continued rail systems. So I do know that supply chain is being led by another group in the state, working closely together with our utility companies. But as it relates to our industry, there's so much opportunity. This is going to simply help bring these treatments and cures to patients, as we mentioned before, in a faster, more meaningful way, hopefully. Also, of course, help investors understand where to invest more strategically, how to create more efficiencies as companies are building facilities, and hopefully be able to be more nimble as well as the innovation continues to evolve. So thank you again for your time today. Great to get to know you. Thanks for coming down to Atlanta. And I look forward to continuing the conversation because I'm quite sure I'm going to have a few acronyms to come back to you with. All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us on Vitals, brought to you by Georgia Life Sciences and Cloudcast Media. It's been another wonderful recording. AI is already here. You better start integrating it right away.